Goldilocks lived in the Goldilocks Zone on a ball earth where everything was just right. And sure enough, she had tested in the house of the three bears where she was living for the time being. The beds, she had found one that was just right. She tested the chairs, and there was one that was just right. And she had tested the soup, and there was one that was just right. Because Goldilocks lived in the Goldilocks Zone, where everything had to be just right. And all this testing to get the things that were just right had worn her out. She had to take a sit down. So she got the chair that was just right. And she had a look out of the windows. But there were 3 windows. One was shaped like a circle, the round window. And one was shaped like a square, the square window. And the third one was shaped like an arch, the arched window. Now the round window, she didn't like what she saw out of that. It was a beautiful view, but the round window was a fisheye lens window. So she didn't like that one. That wasn't just right. Oh no. She wasn't having any of that. And the square window, well, that was okay. It was all square. It was level. And it was flush with the arched window, and the walls and everything about it was level and square. But it was just a little bit too small. She wanted to see the sky as well as the landscape in front of her. And so she found that the arched window was just right, because for Goldilocks, who lived in the Goldilocks Zone on the ball-shaped earth, everything had to be just right. So she looked through the arched window, sitting in her chair. She realized that her eyes were now only 2 feet high. And out of the window, the arch-shaped window, she was told that on the ball-shaped earth, the horizon should be 1.73 miles away, at 2 feet high, because she was sitting in the chair. She was only 4 foot when she was standing up, and now she's sitting in the chair and she is 2 foot at eye level. So she thought, hang on a minute, 1.73 miles to the horizon? I'm looking through the arched window, which is just right, and I can see for 40 miles. I can see on the horizon the waves that are 40 miles away. Easily, on a clear day. So she said, "Ah! This isn't right. It's gotta be just right. If it's not just right in the Goldilocks zone, then it can't be right. And if it's not right, then it's a fairy tale. And if it's a fairy tale, then that means my whole life is a fairy tale." She said, "I'm Goldilocks, and I'm gonna test this Goldilocks zone, ball-shaped earth, out, because I don't want to live a fairy tale life. I want to find out the truth. Otherwise my whole life is a fairy tale. And I can't have that, because everything has to be just right. Not a tale, not something that's wrong, not something that's bust already, because the horizon's 40 miles away, or more even." But she was told it was 1.73 miles away. Ah! She wasn't having it. "I tell you what I want, what I really, really want. What I want is what I want, and I want it to be just right." So Goldilocks said, "Right, I'm going to test this ball earth theory. I'm going to get another ball." So she looked around the Three Bears' house, and she found this thing that had a ball on the end of it. And it had a point on the end of it. And it had ink inside of it, like pens have. So she thought, I wonder what they call that. "I know," she said. "I'll call it a ballpoint pen." So the first ballpoint pen was Baby Bear's ballpoint pen. And Baby Bear's ballpoint pen, the ink on the end of the ball was too sticky. It stuck to the ball. And that wasn't right, because it just wasn't flowing like water that she wanted to test. So the next pen was Mummy Bear's pen. A Mummy Bear's pen. The ball was even bigger, but the ink was just a little bit too thick still. So she looked around a bit more, and she found Daddy Bear's pen. And if she watered the ink down, it would behave just like water. And so she took Daddy Bear's pen, watered the ink down so it behaved just like water, and she took Daddy Bear's pen to the horizon of the earth. Now, remember, this pen is small, and this pen is far away. So she had watered down the ink, and she'd taken the ball to the horizon of the ball-shaped earth. And the ink started to flow down the pen just like water did. And it flowed over the ball in the ballpoint pen. And it flowed onto the earth, the curved shaped surface, the ball-shaped earth in the Goldilocks zone. It didn't stay on the ball point pen. It flowed off the ball onto the other ball and started to roll down again off this ball, like we saw in the last video. So she said, "That's not right. It's supposed to cling on to the balls. It's not supposed to flow all over them and fall off and then keep on flowing. I'm not having that. It's got to be just right. I'm Goldilocks and I live in the Goldilocks zone, and everything here has to be just right. I wonder what I'm doing wrong here. Oh, I know, of course. The ball-shaped earth in the Goldilocks zone, where everything is just right for life to exist, including Goldilocks herself, has to be spinning at 1,000 miles per hour on the outside of the ball. So she started to spin this ballpoint pen here, the ball there in it, at 1,000 miles an hour. Oh, now there's no mistake now. So she let the ink flow down the pen. The ink flowed down the pen just like water does, and it flowed over the ball. But oh my gosh, this time it was worse. This time, instead of just flowing all over the ball and dripping off the end, started squirting out this way and that way, and all over and whoosh, it just was ink flying everywhere, and she was in a right mess. So I'm covered in ink. What's going on here? I can't have this. I'm covered in ink, and I shouldn't be covered in ink. Should have all stuck to the ball. I'm not having this. This isn't just right. I'm Goldilocks, and I live in the Goldilocks zone, and ink flying everywhere is just not right. It should be clinging to the ball, and I'm not having this. There's got to be something wrong here. Oh, I know, she thought. I need a bigger ball. So I'll go back to the house and I'll ask Giant Bear. I'll ask him. I'll find his Giant Bear's ballpoint pen. And Giant Bear's ballpoint pen was so big that it was as big as this in comparison to the shape of the earth. It was even bigger. And she said, "Right, I know what I'll do. I don't need the pen. I'll just take the ball out. And with all the ink inside, I'll refill this pen, this other pen, and I'll let the ink flow down the pen, and it flowed down the pen, and it flowed over the ball that was spinning 1,000 mile an hour on the ball, and then it went on to this giant-sized ball, which was also spinning. She said it's spinning. She asked Giant Bear to give her a hand. He said, yeah, I don't mind you borrowing my pen and taking it apart, and I'll spin it around for you. And, yeah, no problem. 1,000 miles an hour. But again, the water flowed down here, and it squirted off in this direction, and some of it landed on in here, and then it squirted off in that direction, and this direction, and that direction, and over there, and there was blood, there was blue everywhere. And she said, what a mess. I'm not having this. I'm not having this. I'm not having this. I'm Goldilocks, and I live in the Goldilocks Zone. And in the Goldilocks Zone, everything has got to be just right for life to exist. And yet there's ink splashing everywhere. There's water, blue-coloured water, splashing all over the place, making a hell of a mess. This is no way for life to exist. This can't be the Goldilocks Zone where everything is perfect. But oh yeah, of course. This ball isn't as big as the ball-shaped Earth. I'll go and I'll ask Titan Bear for his ballpoint pen, and if I can take it apart and get him to spin it at 1,000 miles per hour, and then everything will be just right. Oh gosh, yes, this is gonna be so good. So she got Titan Bear's ball, and she put it on top of the ball-shaped Earth in the Goldilocks Zone where everything is just right. And she got Daddy Bear's pen, and she filled up the reservoir with the blue watery ink. And the watery ink went over Daddy Bear's spinning ball, and the water started to fly off in all directions over the bigger ball, the Titan ball, which by now, of course, was overshadowing all this underneath here. This was all, this was shadow. The light was coming this way, you see, and so we can just ignore all this underneath here. It's all overshadowed. So, splashed off in this direction and that direction, and this ball was spinning at 1,000 miles per hour on the outside here and here, and the water came running down just like we saw in the last video, and when it got to here it started to spin off the sides and spin off the sides, spin off this way and spin off that way and spin off over there. And she said, I'm not having this. I tell you what I want, what I really, really want, and what I want is what I want, and I want it to be just right. This is not a place where life is just right, where for life to exist with this spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and things just aren't sticking on like they're supposed to stick on. I'm just not having this. I'm just not having it. So, she said, well, what we really want is to get the ball exactly the same size. So she got a ball that was exactly the same size. She thought, I know what I'll do. where can I get one of them from? I know what I'll do. I'll just use the ball-shaped earth. Yeah, that's what I'll do. So she got the pen again, and the water came flowing down the pen. And it went over this ball here, just spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. And it wasn't sticking to either of these two balls. It was flying off all over the place again. And it was landing on this ball this time, which is the real Earth. And what she realised was that although this ball was nearly as big as this ball, that even if she made it as big as this ball, she said, what's wrong with this experiment? And what was wrong with it was that she didn't notice before, because, you know, in the Goldilocks zone, when you're Goldilocks and you think everything is just right, and you've been told everything is just right, you tend to see things kind of like a little bit differently. But now her eyes were sort of starting to open up a bit, and she was starting to see the real world. And in the real world, she noticed what was going wrong was underneath this ball, which was, by now she had made it even bigger, the same size as the ball that she was living on. Underneath it, really, the earth was flat. It wasn't curved, it was flat, like that. And all the ink was going down here, and it was going flat, because water and watery ink finds its own level. And then she could see, wow, isn't that beautiful? It looks just like the lakes and the oceans. They're all flat. I'm not in the Goldilocks zone, she said. Oh, wow. But hang on a minute. It can't be that simple. No. Got to be something missing to this story. But of course there isn't. There's nothing missing. You only have to watch the last video. You only need one proof. You can't deny it. You only need to understand that one video. And if you can't, then you live in the Goldilocks zone, which is a fairy tale. So, but still, you know, she was like, I've been in the Goldilocks zone for so long. I can't really face up to my whole life being a fairy tale. You know, I really thought it was reality. I thought, you know, I thought, she thought she was real, and like, I'll have to do another test, she said. Yeah. She said, I like that square-shaped window. Wasn't too bad. I mean, it was square. All the corners were at right angles, and all the edges were parallel, the two side edges, and it was level. I'm going to go and test this curvature of the earth again. So she took with her the window, and she placed it on the top of the horizon again. She got her spirit level out, and it was level. And she got her plumb line out. She set the plumb line down this way. The plumb line is a piece of string like this with a weight on the end. It always hangs straight downwards. And everything was plumb, this side and that side, and the foundation that she built, that was level. And the top here, that was level. And everything was level and square and plumb. So she thought, I'd build a wall around this window. That's also square and level and plumb. And then I'll have a house of my own. And I won't have to go to those 3 bears' houses anymore and borrow all their stuff. And in my home, I can have everything that's just right. Yeah, I tell you what I want, what I really, really want. What I want is what I want, and I want my own house so that everything is just right. So that's what she did. And she was happy. Everything in her house was just right. I mean, she didn't have the arch-shaped window anymore, but, you know. And it was a bit squarish looking. And so after a few days, this sort of happiness was, she realised it was just temporary happiness. That wasn't real either. There was something not right about her happiness either, you know. She wanted, so what was she gonna do? Just as everything was just right, her happiness just faded away. But she had an idea. I know. If I have 2 houses, then I'll be happy. Oh yeah. Oh, so she set to work straight away and she built another house. And it was flush with this house and everything was square. And this distance between here and there made 2 triangles. And this distance between there and there was the same as this distance between there and there. So she double-checked everything was square. And it was flush to here. And it was plumb again. She checked everything was plumb. She got her spirit level out. And it was level with this one. And it was level with that one. She put the spirit level in the middle. And it was all level. And she got a great big long spirit level. And she made every possible way that it was just right. So, time to put on the roof, she said. So she put on the roof. And she was happy. Everything was just right. But of course, the happiness was just temporary happiness, and after a while, you know, the Joneses came along and they built another house here. And Goldilocks said, I'm going to have to make sure your house is just right. So she came and she checked and it was level and it was flush with her house. And the corners were 90 degrees and everything was square. She said, all right then, you can put a roof on this one. And now Goldilocks was thinking, well, Joneses living next door. They've got one house. And they're going to build another house. Then they'll have two houses. Then they'll have as many houses as I've got. And then, well, I know there's lots of homeless people and everything, but I won't be happy unless I've got 3 houses. So she built another one by here, and she made sure everything was level, and she made sure everything was square, and it didn't belong to any of the bear. And she made sure this was 90 degrees, and everything was 90 degrees, and everything was square, and everything was level, and everything was plumb again. She's got the plumb line out, and she thought, this is funny. How come there's no foundation on this now anymore? Hold on a minute, let me get my plumb level. So she stood by here with her plumb line. And she said, that's funny, it should be going towards here, the centre of the earth. This plumb line should be hanging down this way, towards the centre of the earth. That's funny, she said. It's not, it's going down this way. And I haven't got any I'm up in the air. Got no foundation. But everything's square and level, and everything's flush, everything's next to each other, and everything's, So, I can't have this. She's Goldilocks, and she lives in the Goldilocks Zone, and in the Goldilocks Zone, everything's got to be just right, and, well, it just isn't. You can't live like that off the ground. So she thought, well, I know what to do. I'm not happy with these small little square houses anyway. And, well, I'll put the roof on in this one anyway, just to keep the rain out. But what I'll do is, I think I need a bigger house, because, then everything will be just right. And besides, I've got this building plan idea that, this gap here, it has to be sort of filled in a bit. So if I make a big house, it will bend down to the shape of the earth, and then everything will be just right. That's what you've got to do. You've got to bend it down somehow. So I'm going to build a big house. So she built a big house, and on the end there, like this big house. It was huge. It was a mansion. Oh, it was big. It was big. Boy, was it big. And she made sure it was flush to this house, and this house was flush to that one, that one, that one, and everything was level along here, and everything was square, and everything was plumb, and she got the plumb line out again, and she noticed that instead of it going down this way, it was going down this way. It wasn't going towards the centre of the earth at all. Neither was it there, neither was it there, neither was it there, neither was it there, neither was it there at the very beginning. So, oh, bird. But hey, you know, it's square. It's just like the square window, you know, that square window was okay. It's just a bit smaller now. We've made it into a house, and the house is a bit smaller, and I made it into a bigger house, and hoping that it would somehow bend all these building materials down. But no, that didn't work, and the plumb line wasn't going where she thought it was either. So hey, you know, but still, you know, it passed all the building regulations and everything, so they were allowed to put a house on top, the roof on top rather. So put the roof on top there, and all the houses were in the row. What are you gonna do? So yeah, I got a brilliant idea. What I'll do is, you know, if I have a door here on the corner, I'll just make a door here, and it would be like a trap door in a castle, and it'll fall downwards like this, you know, and form a bridge over to here. So I'll be able to get out the bridge, I'll be able to get out the door, cross over the bridge, and then I'll be on the Goldilocks. Yeah, I'll be Goldilocks on the Goldilocks in the Goldilocks zone, on the ball-shaped earth again, and everything will be just right. I'll have 3 small houses, and I'll have 1 big house, and then everything will be just right. So that's what she did. So she went into this house. She said, this one's too small. And next door was a Jonas, and she said, oh, no, I'll do. I'll hop over the roof and I'll get down here. And then she went into here. No, this one's too small. But I got 2 now, but nah, never mind. And then this one next door, I could knock these 2 in, but it's not big enough. So she went into this one, and this one was so big. She had these spiral staircases that came down like this, and it was like a princess's castle. It was, honestly. So right, she came to the front door here, and she crossed the bridge, and she got out here, and she realised she was standing this way up, like that. That way was up, and that way was down. And she said everything's supposed to be just right. My plumb line is supposed to be going that way, and yet it isn't. It's hanging down this way. So what's going on here? Everything's not just right. You know, this isn't what I want. What I really, really want. What I want is what I want, and I want it to be just right. And it's not just right. So then she remembered the last test that she did with the balls, and she did come to the conclusion that the earth was flat. And then so she was thinking, well, I've still got my Goldilocks goggles on. I'll have to take them off and, you know, and see the world how it really is. And of course, she took her Goldilocks goggles off in the Goldilocks zone, where everything was, you know, rose-coloured spectacles, if you like. You know, everything was just right. And she realised that, hey, you know, this isn't just right. This isn't a ball in the Goldilocks zone, where everything is just right for life to exist. It's a flat earth, and I'm not having this. The only way to for everything to be just right, for life to exist and not to fall off, because it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and so on like that, is that, I take these glasses off, use my real eyes, and see the world how it really is, and the earth is flat. And she was a bit shocked at first, so she asked, Titan Bear, is my whole life a lie? And he said, yeah, it's all been a lie. It's all been a big fairy tale. But don't worry, he said, because now everything, now you know the world, the earth is flat, the world is not round, the world is flat, the world you live in is flat. He said, everything will be just right.